to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming tonight. We have a motion to approve the agenda. We have a couple of changes we have to make. Right, Corinne? We have to move the long-term facility updates down to new business. So we'll make that a B down there. Yeah, that should be fine, right? Okay. That's the only change, I believe. Michael, I think we're just changing the long-term facility maintenance update down to new business.
Okay,
As a B down there.
okay.
Something come in today that has to be taken care of.
Thank you.
So, do we have a motion to approve the agenda with the change we just discussed?
So moved.
Second. Second, around. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This time we have a motion for public comment.
What am I always say all the time?
Yeah. Everybody know this is your time to speak. You should know that, right? Consent items. Do we have a motion to approve the consent items? Motion by Joe.
Second.
Second by Ron. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion items. Superintendent evaluation.
I was hoping that I would have all the leadership team evals to you by now. I will get them by Friday. I will remind them again to get them, and then I will write up what I've done on each of the goals, and you'll have that on Friday so that this can be on the March
The next.
15th.
Okay.
And so what we need to do is we'll get them like on Monday, or,
Hopefully you'll get them on Friday, and you will also get the rubric with the
Your
goals on
goals.
it. And then each of you can score that, and if it's going to be on the March 15th agenda, then if you can get that back to Ann, it would need to be back to her probably the Thursday before that March 15th, or would the Friday before be enough?
Thursday before, I won't be here March, whatever, 11th or whatever.
You won't be here March 11th,
Yeah.
so get them back to her by March 10th.
I'll send out a reminder.
Okay. Everybody got that?
Yeah, will you let Kevin know?
Yeah, I'll give him a call.
and please write comments too. So that I'm not the only one. Because I think whatever we can provide positive, what we'd like to see, I think that the benefit is in those comments as opposed to just marking good or whatever. If you can provide a little bit of feedback, it's always helpful.
I would like to know how the process is going to go, if we're going to do it as part of the regular agenda, or if we're going to go into closed session, or...
Well, in the past, I think it works better if we go into a closed session, Michael.
I didn't know what was decided or what's been discussed on your
Yeah.
evaluation committee, so...
That seems to work out best. I don't know. Your thoughts, Gary, Mimi? That
It's up to Corinne, isn't
I
it?
know.
Well, yeah, Corinne can request it be
Request it be
open.
open.
I can request it be open, but I have, last year, I have the same feeling this year. I defer to the board if the board would rather go into closed. Just so the audience knows, when the board completes their evaluation, then that final score will come back into open session. If that's decided in the closed, we come back into open session and we do then tell the...
Go over it.
Yep, tell the audience.
Maybe So,
So we're going
But-
into closed on the
correct.
15th?
right.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, and then we'll move right down to old business items for discussion and approval, end of year adjustments for elementary school.
Okay, I was hoping that Pat Weir would have had the plan written out by now. Pat Weir is the gentleman that was here before from IEA. And he said he will not be done drawing up the plan until next Friday. And so it's not even going out for bid until mid-March. But I talked to him again today and I just said, what are the chances of you not needing the last 2 weeks of the school year? Of the abatement not needing to start May 23rd? And he said, I don't think that there is any way that you can get done by July 1 without starting March 23rd. So that leaves us with May 23rd.
Yeah.
May 23rd, I'm sorry. If
March
you're listening to
23rd.
this,
Yeah, March
May.
23rd.
Yeah, but that also means that as a board, you probably need to go on record as far as what we've discussed in the past. There are, at first, the option of either abating at night and the students go to school as usual during the day, or letting the abatement go on at night and the students are off-site.
Well, I think I personally, I think when we talked about it, I think some of the factors have come up since the initial conversation, because I don't think we knew that the nighttime option was an option. Well, I don't think we knew all the factors until like I came to the last meeting.
Well, if
But
you-
with that being
If
said,
you do it at night, Tom, do they still have the dust
Well-
during the day? I mean, I don't know.
no, that's because of that.
They'll suck it up or
Right.
whatever, but
It'd be at
hopefully
4
they get it all. You know,
Yeah,
right?
every 4 times an hour. But with that being said, I think 2 things. We had one, a discussion that came up one way, if we do it at night, it may be more money
Yes,
because of the cost. Well, and I think there was a lot of concerns with the kids, whether it's at night or during the day or whenever it is. It doesn't matter. I think there was just a lot of concerns that were brought up. And we talked about at the last meeting, for you and Rick to sit down and try to come up with some game plans. I think, the feelings that I've gotten from the board members, whether at the meeting or off, would be, if we can get them off-site and out of there, would be the best bet. Because then there's no question about concerns, And that's just my understanding.
And at the
that
last-
was- And at the last meeting, that kind of what came up.
you did ask me to reach out to Rochester and Pine Island, because
Mhm.
those are the 2 schools mentioned. Rochester, their health and safety director let me know that the abatement that took place during the school year there was just in the boiler room, and that's a very different abatement process. It's just getting lifted and put in bags and carried out the boiler room door. It's not like the abatement of scraping a ceiling. It's still abatement, but it's not one where there's going to be the friable
Yeah, different
fibers in the air. But Pine Island did do all that abatement at night, and kids were in the building.
So there was
during the
like
day.
3 options, right, that you gave us?
Mm-hmm.
One option was to do something with the school schedule early or late or something like that, right?
We could,
I mean, could you go over all 3
Sure.
options and the positives or the negatives?
well, first, are we going to get the students, are the students going to be in the building at any time abatement is going on?
Well, if we can find a plan to get them out, so
Okay.
that doesn't happen, that's our first choice. if we
And what
can.
you mentioned too is what he mentioned is he does have to do the boiler room as well.
Right.
And he said I could start in there.
Did that come out that he has to?
He does have to do the
Okay.
boiler room, but that containment that he told me today, that the boiler room, it's just the old boiler, so it's not the whole room, it's just encasing the old boiler. And what came back as positive were they're called fire bricks,
Mhm.
and the fire bricks in the bottom are made out of asbestos. So you pick up the fire brick, you put it in the bag, you carry it out the boiler room door.
So that sounds simple, but how long does that take? A week?
They still have to, because there is asbestos, they would still have to set up the containment around the old boiler. And so it takes a day to set up the containment, about a day to, so it's a 3-day process.
So are we comfortable with them taking bricks out when kids are in the building?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
They can't do this at the same time as the rest of it?
Oh, yeah, they can do it all at once.
But it's part of the schedule. It sounds like there might be 2 to 3 days of, that's all they're doing, is
But, you know, I think.
putting bricks in a bag and hauling them out a side door.
But at the same time, when you're talking about containing around the boiler, then doing all that, the time it takes to make the containment facility, tear it all down.
It's a day to make
That's, I
it.
mean, then.
I mean, to me,
It's basically a day
let's-
to remove that stuff.
Let's eliminate
so.
our risks.
Yeah.
Our risk with the children and teachers and everybody, let's reduce our risk. And our risk would be not having kids in there during that time, whenever they're doing anything with us. It eliminates, there's so many people that, me included, I included, that don't understand the process and the risks, because I'm not an asbestos expert. But, you know, you read the emails or hear the rumors, and I just want to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, and there's a clear understanding. I mean, you're not an asbestos expert.
No.
And
Nor do I claim to be.
right.
Were you here when the expert was here? I can't
No, I was
remember.
not
He
here.
wasn't here.
Yeah.
I mean, he really,
But I mean, there's still some people in the school district and everybody else about their kids that wasn't here, along with me, that still,
but I'm just, they're doing it. You go to Mayo Clinic for an appointment,
I know.
they're doing it in there.
But my kids aren't at Mayo Clinic when they're doing it.
Yeah, they might be.
No, they're not. I know they're not.
They might be walking through, you really don't know, I guess, and I thought with the boiler room, he said it was a different way of doing containment, because it's its own room. So, it's hard to speak, it's hard for you to answer these questions,
Well,
I think,
if he
without
was here,
him
it'd be clear, but,
here.
it seemed to me it was like 8 days total of school that would change. The
It's
1
7
week-
and a half,
Yeah,
right?
like 8 days.
Mhm.
Okay, it'd be the 1 week plus the 3 days.
Right.
I think that was an option, like we talked about, have them contain the boiler room, do that prior to, then contain the other areas, have them do that with the kids in the building. That was one option, right?
Mhm.
And the other option was close the school early, that was discussed, which really isn't a good option.
No.
Then for most people anyway. And then the latter of the two was to find other things for them to do, go to another location, to have, finish off.
Mhm.
And that's when you and Rick, were gonna talk to the teachers and
Mhm.
kind of get feedback from them on what are their thoughts. And I'm assuming you guys did that,
Right.
correct?
And I talked to them about relocating for
Mhm.
the last 7 days, or
Mhm.
7.5 days. And most of them, well, there were all kinds of different ideas that were generated. There was relocating within Houston. I brought up, Winona State is off, do you want me to contact to see if we could rent space, and so you could all be together at Winona, because when I did say that I had talked to Hiawatha Valley Ed and La Crescent about, there's 5 rooms at the Hoka building, and that would mean that there would be some classes that would be driven to Hoka, and we'd find other places for other classes. They really, as a staff, didn't want to be split within different towns just because of the specials with FIAD and art and music, getting that orchestrated, so they all want to be in the same location so that the specials can still take place. And so there was a group of teachers that presented the different locations in Houston where they'd like to be. There was one that talked about renting a building in Winona, but the building she suggested was not, it's already being occupied, it's not rentable. Then the one idea that came up was to relocate for that May 23rd through May 27th and just let school be done early and not have the students come back for that May,
2.5 days.
those 2.5 days, the last days in May, but then the teachers would come on site and be working on curriculum over here in this building, because their building would still be in the
Mhm.
abatement process.
I mean, the building's gonna have to be something done
So,
for them to do the work
going back to
anyway.
the options, relocating was one option.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What were the other two? Starting early or late, was that an option? I thought I saw it.
They brought up the fact of trying to get extra time in by starting the day earlier or ending the day later.
Good.
But contractually, the teachers would still have to be here through their contract time.
Okay.
And in looking at the requirements for hours, we hit the requirements for hours without doing the early and late, even if because right now, we could still take off the whole 7.5 days and still hit the elementary day requirement set by the state, as long as we didn't have any more snow
For the
days.
kids. For the kids.
For the kids.
Teachers would still have to come.
Still, teachers would still have to come. The teachers are contracted
Yeah, so
for
it'd be
days
your
no longer, no matter how
recommendation.
long, and I think,
Is your recommendation the 7 days off then?
no, no.
What is your recommendation?
I think relocating for a week and then having the last 2.5 days off probably makes the most sense. Educationally, we can make sure that for those 5 days, it can be educationally sound.
They're not gonna just go, not that it's just, but go on field trips or anything like that.
Some of the teachers are, if they are able to, the field trips that have been planned are being now planned, if they can move them, or if they haven't booked them yet, they're being booked for that week of the 23rd through the 27th. Someone did bring up the fact that if it's field trips for 5 days, it's going to be so much money. What you do have to understand is that right now, field trips are paid for through the money raised by PI, the Partners in Education, through the magazine drive. So it's not like the board is paying for field trips right now. But the teachers really came up with some educational things and some other teaching that they're still going to be doing, because they can plan for that.
Because the last week and a half is hectic, because kids can't wait to get out.
Right.
And now you're relocating them. Do you see that as just a huge, another thing that's gonna drive teachers crazy? I'm not a teacher, but another thing that's,
Maybe it's an adventure for them.
what are the kids gonna get out of it, you know?
Well, we have had to relocate before with a water main break, but that was with no notice. This way, when we know we can plan for it and relocate, there are some teachers that have already come into Mr. Bart's and claimed dibs on different locations around town, because they already know what they want to do and what they want to teach, and an extra unit they want to do. Like going to the nature center with the natural playground and teaching different things, because there's like the little echo thing, and so they're going to be teaching their little physics unit on sound and echoes, and as Ron said, really using it as that kind of learning adventure time where they can
So
find
the
it.
teachers are coming up with some ideas.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that what I would like to see is, I would like to see no abatement going on while children are
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've,
during school, and I would like us to, go on record as agreeing with that if that's the case, and the rest of it's administrative. I mean, you get to decide along with your staff how you're going to take care of the kids for this time.
I agree, but I mean, I'm back on us. I don't want to to see a fiasco either, you know, I want it to be planned to the details of even the lunches and, you know, how you're gonna relocate these kids during lunch, what are you gonna do for that, and busing and the special needs children, and, you know, I just see them having issues, and I just want
They've got 2.5 months, so.
I know, but it's the details that get forgotten.
Our halftime Phi Ed teacher already came in and said, you know, I've got my bus license and I could use the gym facility or the cafeteria here and pick up the kids because the music teacher can use the music room in the high school because that's not being used, because when he does the music in the elementary, he can't be here using his high school classroom. So he said he can just have the elementary music here. Same is true with the art teacher, so she can have art over here. And so he said, I wouldn't mind transporting, and then I would be the first pickup from Phi Ed and the first drop off.
I get all this, Corinne. Do you have a kind of a plan or strategic plan on how you're gonna roll this out so everybody, down to the parents, know where their child's gonna be, on how we're gonna do this yet? I mean,
No, they will.
I mean,
No,
when
because
will we-
I didn't know what the board was.
I know, but when
because
would we have a plan?
As soon as the board decides, and then I sit down with Mr. Bartz, and we take the information that we've already gotten from the staff, and then we start seeing what places we can book around town, and.
Why don't you see by the next board meeting, which gives you a few weeks, right?
Yep.
You think-
Well,
So
just to
you'd like-
make it
See-
concrete, I would move that there be no students or staff in the building after, when abatement begins, of any sort.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go on record and say, I mean,
You're gonna, is somebody
Oh,
gonna second?
sorry.
I'll second it.
Second by Joe. Discussion? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, I don't need to know all the details. That's why we have you and we have Mr. Bartz. And
Exactly.
I
I trust
agree.
that, I mean, if you want to bring them to us and we can review them, but I think it's going to be a great opportunity. I have a son that's going to love it. If he gets out of the classroom in nice weather and goes out and explores, I hope he's one that gets to, I mean, he's going to absolutely love the sort of stuff that they're going to be doing that last week. But I think the next thing she's going to need, though, is, you're saying just 1 week, like how many days do they need to plan for?
Well, I think we had that when she discussed, I think the week and just knock off the 2.5 days. I mean,
That would
that's,
take board action as well. But,
Well, first of all, we do this, and then after you got some more details in place, then we could.
knock off the last 2 days. 2.5.
Well, I think we need to discuss that tonight.
yeah.
I mean,
Because if we're planning everything to the nth degree, which I absolutely agree with you, we would need to do. Because anytime you are changing schedules for students, for staff, and we're not doing the status quo, everybody, including the parents, need to know exactly what's happening. And so if I'm making those plans, those of us in that process of making the plans, because I'm not making the plans by myself. I'm getting the input from other people to make sure that what we're formulating really does work for everybody. I need to know, am I planning for 5? Am I planning for 7.5?
Okay.
Makes a huge difference.
Well, it's kind of asked, because didn't ask, this is the first time it came, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but Michaeline, what do you,
Well,
or,
yeah, because we do have a motion and a second on the floor first, so
Right.
we just want to make sure that we take care of that one
okay.
before we get a new
okay.
motion.
Any other questions on the initial motion first?
So the motion is that
We
kids
have
won't
no
be in the
kids,
building.
correct.
no
No
staff.
personnel.
No staff or personnel will be in the
or
building during
students in the
abatement.
building.
The entire building, so
Correct.
not even the gym,
Right.
Correct.
even though there's no abatement in the gym.
Yep.
Yep. Tim? Any other discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay,
So, now we need a
No,
motion
no.
on the amount of days that the
Well,
grade
I-
school will be adjusted to.
mhm.
Can I throw one other option? I mean, you've given us options, and maybe those are the only options we should be talking about. I know a few people have said in the past meetings, you know, why, we've talked about maybe the abatement isn't gonna take this much time, and maybe we can wait until the end of the school year, and the construction can't start till July 1, and, I mean, what if we just carry out the school year to the end of the school year and start the abatement after the end of the school year and deal with it on the other end?
Because when we got the bids, you, as a board, really wanted to make sure that there were timelines tied to those bids. And the timelines as far as work completion was predicated on the fact that they could get in right away, July 1. If we've got abatement going into July,
But maybe the abatement, we're saying that maybe the abatement is going to be less. We don't
Well,
have
and
that
that's-
plan yet.
yeah, but that's why I called Pat today to see if it was done.
Right,
And he said
but-
he,
So I'm just saying,
He's just
there's,
covering himself.
But you're right, I mean, my
there's another
feeling
option.
Yep.
is right, I mean, if we say we're not having school in there, and you don't need to set up any containment in the lower level or worry about any of that, take over the whole school. Maybe that saves time, and maybe they can work day and night. Maybe they can have two shifts.
I don't
Who
know,
knows?
it's just, I know it's throwing another thing out there, but a few people have said, what about? And I said, well, we're locked into these, we're backed up from the start of next school year, we're backed up to here, and then we're backed up to here, and yet we keep hoping for 2 weeks of variance in the abatement.
Well, until we know a little more information, I don't see that we have another motion that even makes sense.
Well, I think your motion is fine, we don't want anybody
This
in.
one, yeah, but another motion until we have some idea.
Well, yeah, we have to make a decision whether we're gonna just finish out this school year with no changes, or
'Cause like
whether we're
Michael-
gonna take it off at this end of this
In
school
Michaeline's
year.
defense, you're basically saying, let them guys worry about where they end up, you know, if they're 4 days, maybe it's 3 days, at the end of the, start of next year's school district, or school calendar, right?
Well, I don't wanna see that
I know that,
either.
you know what I'm saying?
But I'm just saying,
We're assuming that they're gonna be late and not make their deadline, or work right up to the deadline.
and they probably will, and they
Yeah.
probably, you know, that's how construction goes,
Mhm.
but it's just another option to throw out there. My other question on the 2.5 days, if we're gonna take 2.5 days off, what's the decrease in revenue?
there isn't.
Kids aren't here though, right? I mean,
Right, so I thought that that was attendance. So if kids are not in attendance on a day, I know we have the minutes required for seat time, but what is the decrease in revenue for children not attending?
When they're entered in Mars, you put the number of days that, it's called membership days. And so that would be your days, minus any days that are canceled, so for snow days or anything. So your attendance days match your membership days. That's what gives you the 1.0 for a full revenue. And so for a regular school, your membership days are always going to equal your attendance days for a 1.0. And as long as you're under that, as long as you have more hours in than what the statute says, you're okay.
So there's no decrease in revenue.
But that's why, if we are going to eliminate those 2.5 days, it needs to be board action. So their membership days and the other days would then match in Mars.
Can you please ask the asbestos guy how much it will save, how much time, without without him having to worry about doing it at night and kids and this and that? Because that seemed like it was a lot of extra effort. Because you said once we were out, then they could kind of take over the whole school, right?
Well, they still have to
Well,
contain
they still have
it.
to go.
They
Is
still
there
have to
any
do
way
all of that,
We could get a
but
cost from them if they had to work on a Saturday. I'm sure they did budget for a Saturday to get those out.
Okay, the
I mean, we're talking 5
IEA guy
Saturdays.
does the plan as far as what things need to be abated.
Right.
He does not do the abatement. He has to then go out to bids. He's not a
Well, I
contractor
understand
that does the
that, but whoever got the
abatement.
contract, could you see if they could tighten that up?
We haven't given the
We
contract.
haven't even gone out for bids yet.
Right.
So as far as coming up with some of those, you know, what's the financial difference between doing it during the day or during the night? He knows that it's more expensive at night. How much? He doesn't have
Well,
a clue.
because he hasn't-
Because he hasn't put it out
Yeah,
for
I was
bid
gonna
yet,
say,
and
you're
you've
gonna have
gotta
to
look at
request it.
what other bids are going on at that time, what other, it's,
Because we don't know the cost of relocating either.
Well, what if we put in a start date and an end date, and they know how much is there,
Yeah.
and their bids are appropriate to get it done in the time frame? I don't understand, I
There's
guess
a lot of,
I,
with construction and with anything, there's always a lot of what ifs. So we
Yeah.
can either say, let's assume the worst, and let's give them the option to have the 7 days. And then if we come out and things, we don't need that, we've done planning, we haven't done anything, and we just go back to normal. If it changes. But the decision, I think, here is what Corinne's saying, we have to come up with some decision tonight, so we can give this guy some ideas, so they can start planning. This guy can go out for the bids with the assumption he's gonna do it during the day and not night, because if he asks for nighttime, maybe some of the people won't bid, or maybe the cost is gonna be higher. He knows that would be the case for those 10 days, or weekends, they're gonna charge more. It's just the way the business is done.
well, can we ask for two different, we don't care if it's during the day or the night, right?
No.
But can we ask
We
for
can
two
do
different
that.
options of a start date and an end date of such and such, and a start date and an end date that's shorter? And see
I don't-
what the
except
different
The
bids.
asbestos abatement doesn't have a start or end date, right? It's the construction
The
that can't start
construction's
until
gotta start.
July 1st.
the construction can't start until July
So
1st.
that's
And
the end
until
date
the
of the-
abatement is done. Those are
Until
the
the
two.
abatement is done, and what he said is that in looking at it, for the abatement, they don't do the whole building at once, they go floor
By
by
floor,
floor because of the way they need
have
to
to
set up
control
the abatement zones. And so just giving them the whole building doesn't mean they can do the whole building at once. They still have to do floor by floor. It's still going to take, he said, it's still going to take about 2 weeks per floor, because I asked that. I said, if we just give you the whole building, and he said, there's not a crew that is going to do the whole building at once. They still have to go floor by floor.
We have to contain everything, and there's limited to what they can do, and it's gotta be, so much air has to be moved every 4 times an hour. They have to exchange the air completely. That's the law. So they can't do that whole building. You'd have to have huge facility, systems to do that exchange of the air. So that's why I'm assuming there's a lot of factors involved in it. I've never done abatement.
Yeah,
but-
because I said, how much wiggle room do we really have? And he said,
So you figure they need
it's
6
gonna,
weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks to get it done, is what they
Well,
need.
Corinne, a question to you would be, would you rather pursue this at this end of the school year, or would perhaps pushing it off and seeing how much time we'd have to move students around at the beginning of the school year, buy you more time to come up with things, or is that just not a good option because you're too far into it?
We've already gone out for the bids, and the bids were already tied to a timeline. And so if we push that back, I'm worried
We haven't
about.
gone out for bids for.
Yeah, we haven't.
Not for abatement.
For construction.
For construction.
Well,
We said
construction,
that-
yeah, but I'm,
July 1st is when we said some people could start, and they wouldn't be
exactly,
able to
but
start on
what
that
if
date.
the asbestos abaters start whenever they can, and they're not done July 1st?
We're still paying
We're
for
still
it.
gonna go
We're
past
still
that.
gonna be stuck in the same situation.
I
If-
agree.
So that isn't gonna change. I mean, if they get the abatement done sooner, they're not gonna start construction till July 1. If the abatement takes longer, they're not gonna start construction until July 7th. They can't.
Well,
Except
they
if the
can-
contract says July 1st, and they can't start on July 1st, we're basically breaking the contract, so then it
Well, if they
costs
wanna
us
work
more
in
money.
an area that's being abated.
I mean,
Well, no,
that's
they-
beyond
Well,
our
they can
realm
work in
here.
the
I think
basement.
I think we're kind of going overboard here. Let's continue on.
I
with
just am
this,
trying to
because I
see
think
if
there's
it's
a lot of
this end
discussion.
or,
I
I mean,
mean-
I really appreciate that it's a difficult discussion. You've given us time to think about it, and I can't thank you enough for that, because we haven't often, in my time on the board, had a lot of time to make big decisions like this.
And
So-
this is a huge decision.
And so we keep complicating it by now throwing in, what about this option? And I'm sorry for that, but I think we get to the best solution by doing that, so.
I also do, like UNESCO, is there any way they can find a way to make this work?
Their way of making it work
Just
is.
5 days off, that's the only option?
It's starting it on May 23rd, and they said, because their first suggestion was to do it the same way Pine Island did, was to abate at night and have kids and faculty during the day. And
Well, you gotta remember, this abatement came up at last minute.
Right.
It wasn't something that was part of it when we originally set the plan. That's where the cost kind of went, what the heck, we have to do this now? Nobody told us that, because they came in and did testing, and then that's when it all started. And that was not even that long ago.
that was January.
So that's
and you
where a
have to
lot of,
remember
our
everything else.
deadlines were already set for our contractors, everything was set in place, and now we're trying to backfill it with this abatement process. It needs to be done, and they're requesting 6 weeks that we have to get it done. Now, again, I think we just need to either, we've already talked about not having kids in there, we've agreed to that. Now it's just whether we want to have it 5 days of school and then the last 2.5 days off. And they come up with a plan as administrators on what they're gonna do during that last week,
You know,
out of the building.
It would be nice to talk to UNESCO too, to see if any of, because we're not contractors, we're not contract experts, to see if any of these contracts can move out a week or something like that, what our options are there. We
Those
don't
are
know
already
that with
bid, though.
bringing
Those are,
contracts.
Those are
yeah.
already-
And we can
I don't
talk, we
care.
can ask
I
questions.
don't care, being off a week.
We can ask the guy.
Relocating, you can't tell me that we're not gonna be efficient on when we relocate, and it's not gonna cost us any money either, so. It's gonna cost us some money, it's gonna cost us inefficiencies. So, I just wanna look at all the options.
Oh. So we're gonna look at all the options, let's try to set some plans in place, you know what I mean, Joe, get some plans down on paper, what are you gonna do for that time period, if you're gonna be 5 days or 7 days?
Okay, so you want
And
a
then we-
5-day and a 7.5-day
Yeah,
plan?
and then, you know, if we agree that we're only gonna be here 5 days and then drop the other 2.5,
Well, to make Michaeline, you know.
and then
just-
let's find out from them on the others.
Yep.
That can be in the works, and at the same time, get with UNESCO and say, okay, what if? If, like Michaeline said, what if we don't get out, because it's a cost factor, and it's not very efficient for our school to change everything all of a sudden. Even though we have time, we can make it happen if we have to, we've done it in the past. But what if we go to school and we just drop off the 2.5 days? Just say that's what we agreed to. And they get in there 2.5 days earlier on that Saturday morning after we're closed on Friday.
I don't think we can't risk that.
You know, what would be,
IEA has given us their best estimate for the safe amount of time they need. I think we need to respect that. We can't,
you're talking the abatement people.
yeah.
Well, the
We can't
abatement
risk-
planners,
Yeah,
they
the
they
planners.
don't,
The
they don't
planners,
do any
okay, the
abating
planners, yeah,
themselves.
the
That would
planners.
be a conflict of interest.
Yeah, the planners.
And we
It
can't
doesn't
risk
hurt to
pushing it
ask,
on
does
the other
it,
end.
Gary?
What's
Does it hurt
that?
to ask?
What's that?
To ask UNESCO what
They're
our
gonna
options
defer
are?
to IEA.
They will, yeah.
I agree on the abatement, but the other part of it,
What's that?
sliding it a week on the rest of it, the construction part of it.
Those
I
contracts
understand
are
that.
already out, though.
Yeah, those are, you
They're
can't do
also out,
that.
and then we start running the risk of starting late at the other end, so we could end up with both ends being a problem.
Well, I think we run the risk at the other end already.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's what we're
Anytime
trying
you have
to
anything
avoid.
done,
by-
Yeah,
But
we're not
I know,
gonna-
but
this
there's
is
no
a mess.
guarantees in
So why don't
construction.
we-
So, I mean, to me, we run that risk anyway.
Yeah,
We're
this is a
trying to
mess.
minimize the risk. let's put it
Which is
that way.
why the facility committee was pretty adamant that timelines got added into those bids.
Yeah, but timelines still, if the construction isn't done, it doesn't matter that there's a timeline. It's not done. So, I mean, I know that we put the timelines in, but it's not a guarantee, is it? I haven't built stuff, but I know a number of people who have, and
It's never a guarantee.
Well, we can minimize the risk by
Okay.
letting them start when they can start, instead of pushing it back a week.
right.
So
we
we
can,
want,
worst case scenario, have both ends, both
Yeah.
this end and the start of the school year.
Yeah,
Worst
we'll
case
wreck both
scenario.
ends of the
Worst case
school
scenario.
district, and both ends of the calendar.
so the only thing we haven't, so we've already agreed on no kids in there. We just haven't agreed on the days. So I guess you can plan it both ways since we can't agree on that at this time.
Okay?
And at the next meeting, maybe have more information on us, what you guys decided. And you can ask UNESCO if there's wiggle room.
March 9th, UNESCO and the representatives from UNESCO, representatives from the contractors and from the school are going to be meeting from 12:30 until 3:30, going through the first skeleton of the timelines.
So it's a basic breakout. Okay, can you let UNESCO know, we'd like to know the wiggle room available and the factors that came up tonight, you know what came up.
And
See what they came up with, and then, what day is the ninth?
Wednesday,
Next
and
Wednesday.
Pat Weir will be there from IEA, even though his plan will not be finalized, but he will be there to answer questions to the contractors, because there has to be total communication going on.
But we need to just get, tell them we have some questions yet on that.
Yeah, well, I feel like on that wiggle room, I mean, Pat Weir, and I really appreciated his coming. I thought he was very professional, he was very honest, he was very reassuring. But he said there's wiggle room. We asked about the boiler, we asked about, are we gonna need those 2 weeks or not? And he just said it's a question mark. There might be wiggle room, there might not. It might be completely filled, so that opened the door for there might be wiggle room.
So then
Right.
again,
And which is
now
why I called him
he'll-
today, and I said, so how much? And he said, I don't see any, so.
We said there might be wiggle room if they didn't have to do the.
Right, but they do have to do the boiler.
But they don't have to do as much of the boiler, it's the fire bricks, that's less than it could have been,
Well,
right? So-
Because the fire bricks are in the boiler, the whole boiler as it's getting removed will need to be removed
Yeah,
by the
I-
asbestos guys.
I'm just saying,
Okay.
we were hoping for 2 extra weeks back last time we met with him. That didn't happen.
Okay, so I have some questions.
So-
If you guys think of other ones, send them to Ann, and you can put them on the list of concerns. We'll try to get some answers from UNESCO on the 9th, and then before the 15th meeting, we'll have more. And then you and Rick can work on the other part of it.
So on the
Does that sound fair?
15th, we're gonna try to make a decision. Is that correct?
Because-
We need to.
Yeah,
for
we
the-
Right,
need to-
we need to,
15th, we have to
because
make a
on the
decision.
11th, that plan will be done, and then it will be going for bids that next week. But that also means that on the 11th, I'm on the phone with Pat again, saying, okay, you've got the plan done. What do you have in your specifications as far as timelines,
Right.
as far as the entire scope?
Do we run a risk of voting on this before we actually have a winning bid? Who's actually gonna do the work?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So when will the bid be back?
March.
The bids go out mid-March, and for the bidding process, because of timelines, even putting this on the first meeting in April would really be pushing it as to whether the bids would be back by that day. I
You can ask
I
him,
will
he may,
know,
I would think it would probably be getting them back sooner than later because of the timelines you're talking.
it
April.
depends on what,
Who's out there and who can do it, who's licensed. I mean, there's a lot of-
and because of the scope of the project and the amount of money it's going to be, there are some specifications you need to follow as far as how long the bid needs to be
Right.
out. And so, I should be able to get all that information from Pat as far as when the bid opening date will be. I will know that March 9th, so then I can let everybody know that March 11th, when the bid opening will be.
So it will say this is your start date, this is your end date?
Mhm. The bidding process. will say,
No, I
okay,
mean of.
The abatement.
The abatement, yeah.
Or we
Yeah.
want to
I don't think you
say,
can put a time.
Once you
No.
put the bids out, they'll probably come out with times.
Right.
They say,
Yeah.
well, we
It's-
walked it, it's gonna take about 6 weeks.
so I know these guys are very, it's a very educated guess,
Mhm.
but it's just a guess at this point because nobody's bid.
No.
No one can, the bid hasn't been put out yet.
But once the bid is
Specs
put out,
and-
even then, it'll be kind of a guess, because they don't know what they're gonna run into.
Until when the bids come back, then we will have the
That's
timeline.
something we could ask UNESCO, yes.
UNESCO's not,
UNESCO's just
No,
gonna
but
guess.
I'm
They're
saying
gonna
UNESCO's
it's
not
still-
really,
less guess.
I thought they were the contractor over all this, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the general on it.
So
they're
they
the
should know
general,
some of the
but
details, right?
Yeah, they'll be able to give us.
they're
better-
involved with it.
Yeah.
I guess the reason I'm saying this is because if it goes out for bid and nobody says, I can get it done in that timeline, then we're really in trouble. Or we might have somebody come back and say, I can do it in 4 weeks, not
Well, then,
6.
but then again,
Well, we
like
can
I said
always
earlier, then
adjust
we can
back
always
out
adjust
again.
back out of what we're into. You know, it's
Okay.
not like, you know, if it comes down where the guy says, hey, I only need 2 weeks to get it done, we're like, hey, hoorah. Move on.
Well, it is,
You know,
I mean, if we're changing the end
If
of
we don't adjust the
school,
school.
if we're changing the end of school,
We're planning the change of end of school, but we're not gonna change unless
We haven't made
it
an
has to be
action
done.
to change it yet.
You haven't
You know,
been,
we haven't made that
I'm
action.
just saying, if you're, I mean, as a parent,
Mhm.
I want to know when my kids have school and when they don't, because I have to make plans for
Mhm.
them otherwise. And I
That's
think
why
it
we're
would look,
talking
we'd
about
look
it
kind
now.
of silly to
is
say,
kind of-
we're changing the end of school, and then 2 weeks later say, oh, I'm sorry, no, we're not. We're changing it back.
no, and this whole process is, the communication, there's not a chance where we'll have too much communication. We have to really over-communicate with this so that everybody knows what's going on. And we also need to make sure that because we can't afford miscommunication, we're not going to communicate until we know exactly what is going on.
I understand, and that's the challenge, right? I mean, you want to
Mhm.
communicate as early as possible.
Right.
But you also need to wait
That's right.
to make sure you know, and so that's why I'm raising the question is, can we really communicate until we actually have bidders? And I don't know the answer to that
No,
question.
I think we'll know more on the 9th. We'll have a better feel of it, and then by the next school board meeting, we'll have a little bit more information.
But
at
we
least
will
some.
not have bids back.
We
by the
won't have
next board
everything, but we'll have
I think we
some.
need to make the decision and not go back on, I mean, once we make the
Yeah, right.
decision, we don't go back on it,
No.
even if the thing takes less time. We just,
Keep it.
well, yeah, I mean, if we make a decision to cut 2.5 days off, we communicate that, and if we didn't need those, it's too bad, we don't go back on that. But, you know, I'm still open, or I've opened for which end of the summer are we gonna
Mhm.
push around? And I don't know that we're talking about that either, so. Anyway,
So let's continue this conversation at the next one with more information.
Okay.
Is that fair to everybody?
Then you got
Good.
that?
Sure.
Okay. Where were we now? Old business? Okay, we
That
talked about
was just
that.
what we did.
I've got it right.
I forgot it was old.
Happy?
New business. First one on for items for discussion and approval, policies for first reading. There's a few on here, anything that we can do.
Where did we move the maintenance, long-term
B.
facility maintenance?
B.
To B.
B.
Be under new or old?
Be under new.
Okay.
Is there anything, Michaeline, anything you need to worry about on those? Since you're a
we
policy
either,
expert.
Ann has them all out there, you can all go look at them and provide feedback at the next meeting.
Minimal changes from last time.
Thank you. Next thing on the agenda for new business is long-term facility maintenance update.
Okay, Mike Fry from UNESCO was here today, and we opened bids. We opened the bids for the windows. And here's what we're talking about as far as timelines. If the work is going to begin, this is the only bid we received. Lacrosse Glass is the only company that provided a bid for the high school and preschool windows. If the bid is going to start work on 6/13, right now to get windows, it's a 12-week window. If we wait until March 15th to approve this, we just blew out the start day, and it looks like only 2 days, but for every week we wait, it's going to add another 2 weeks to the delivery of the windows because there are so many people ordering right now.
Mhm. So you're saying is we need to approve this bid, that the only one
Yes,
that we got?
it's the only one we got. If we would have received more than this, I would not be asking you to do this, because this
These are the
is
same
not
people
like,
that did your school, right? Grade school? It's not your school, Rick, I just, you like to say that.
but this is, as a board, you did go out, and I don't know if you did an official bid or if you just asked to to look into the replacement of windows at the high school, and Todd thinks it was 7 years ago, and at that point, it was $35,000. So this is,
Well, I was happy with the work they did on yours, so.
And this is in the budget? This is what we had in there, or it's under the budget?
it's under actually what we had in there.
So do we have a motion to approve the bid?
So moved.
So second?
Second.
Second by me. Discussion, further discussion on the windows.
Is there abatement being done at the high school?
The windows were all tested, and none of the windows had,
But is abatement being done where the window installers cannot work until the abatement is done in this building?
there is abatement that's going to be done in this building, but the abatement in this building can be done because they only have to set up 2 containment areas. So the abatement in this building can be done in a week. So it's going to be done in,
So
as soon as
it'll be-
people are done
Okay.
out in this
School.
building.
So his motion was correct still, I mean, right? His motion wasn't specific to the elementary.
No, there will not be any, except, well,
Well,
Office staff,
the
we're gonna-
abatement
we're-
here wasn't gonna happen till after the school
Right.
year.
Right.
It wasn't an issue, but I'm looking at June 13th to
no,
start.
the abatement will be
Install
done, the
in
abatement,
workers in a
Right.
building that's under abatement. That's my
Correct.
question.
the abatement in
Workers
this
don't mind
building is
working.
gonna be
Oh,
done before.
that's good.
Yeah, workers don't care. They'll work around it. We're just
So
more
it's
worried
not
about
gonna
the
be a
children.
problem.
No, no, that will not be a problem with the abatement going on.
Okay.
And actually,
Okay, any other?
there will be some, people working here while this building is being abated, because those of us in the office will be working here when the abatement is going on. And we might ask for a porta potty outside, because we won't be able to get into the building.
So, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion on the windows? So we meet the window of opportunity.
You've been with Ron too much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Announcements, important events.
Just the March 9th upcoming, anyone who wants from the board, if you can get off work that Wednesday, and if you want to attend, you are more than welcome.
Where's this?
We're going to be meeting in room 15, which is the Industrial Technology
That's March
Computer
9th,
Lab.
March 9th.
March 9th.
I think we went past it, but the front face of the high school, was that for a discussion at all, or no?
That's going out for bid. Actually, if you want to go back, that was another
sorry,
rendering.
back up.
That is the front face, and that's with raised, lighter bricks.
Yes, Joe.
Yes. And so,
I'm wondering if we want to be saddled to HHS on the building in the district that might take on a different role in the future. Sorry. It's just a question.
would you rather it said HPS?
Well, possibly, I don't know.
Or we've got other renderings. Do you have the other renderings there? There's
I don't know,
three that they
facilities, did
did.
you guys talk about
No,
this?
yes,
I-
facilities asked,
talked about
the first rendering
Sorry. Raise it.
was
Okay.
the,
You can always change it down the road. I mean, you can take away, they're raised bricks, so you could always change them, cut them off.
there's
Just
this
allow
one
that,
that just has the bricks
I like that.
raised, so it matches the rest of the building. This one had some sections where there weren't any raised bricks because the facility committee asked if they could have some panels where they could paint the hurricane logo on the bricks. And I'm the one that said, I don't want to paint anything on the front of the building again. So that's how the raised
So it would look like
HHS.
this all
That looks
across.
nice.
This is actually with the,
See if I can find that.
It's real.
with the, that's that first one. This is
There it is.
the first that's the one that we did get one bid from Kittleson, but it was not complete. He still needs to work with the roof flashing. All Trades, who got the bid for the elementary school, was also going to bid, so that's why at the March 15th meeting, there will be a bid acceptance, but we need to see if All Trades actually comes through with a bid. And then the way the bid comes in, it will have the original bid, and this is the face for the original bid, so there isn't the panel. And then alternative bid, and that's with some of the panels left blank or with the HHS raised, depending on what you guys want.
So it'll be all three options. Okay.
Okay, so, well, it's a future consideration.
Yeah, but future for, in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
or
Okay,
actually
well,
13 days.
Okay, I raised my question, that's all.
Okay.
We'll see
But if you
more.
have any other, questions, because
Once
2
it's
weeks
done.
is not really that much
Ah,
time.
it's a lot of
We're making decisions.
Lot of time. Great.
No. Okay,
Okay. Any other questions on that? Any other important events, Fran?
do you want to do, I do have to talk about a future agenda item, but if you want to talk about the meeting updates first, you can.
Okay. Meeting and committee updates, we have the online. Maybe you wanna,
We talked about cohort dates, which we're suggesting we keep pretty much the same as this last year, so that'll come to the board
15.
the 15th. We talked about the organizational structure of how things are set up in the online school, and Corinne is going to prepare some information for us with the current roles and responsibilities, and then maybe how those would be aligned different in the future. And will that come to the online committee again before it comes to the board?
Or is that something you feel the whole board needs to see first?
What do you guys
I would
think?
say, bring it up to the online first, then let us, chisel through it and then bring it up to the board.
Yeah, I think
That's why we have
that's
them.
probably a good idea, because I don't quite
Yeah.
know how it's gonna work out, or,
So we'll
how
do
much
that
work is
first.
even involved at this point. We talked about enrollment projections and the upcoming 3-year review. Anything additional to add?
And then the enrollment projections, you're sending that out to everybody? Okay, so we can kind of see where we're at in the 3-year review,
That's MDE's.
MBE review.
It's
That'll be coming up every
required.
3 years.
We did it, 3 years ago. This is a
And
very
this
different
advanced
process than
ed
we did
thing?
3 years ago. Advanced
Yeah.
Ed, we're doing those in tandem.
So, is there any questions on that, anybody? No, Michael, he was there, I caught the end of it, he was there. Joe, Gary, you have any? Good? Okay. Facilities, we didn't have anything going on, anything else? Okay.
And then meet and confer, Ron's gone, so that leaves you, Michael.
I don't remember what we discussed. We just we've had good meetings. I think that they've been very productive. They've been very cordial meetings between the representatives of the teachers in the district, and I think we're
It's just the food,
looking at
reimbursement.
reworking, yeah. Corinne, why don't you speak to it, because you proposed it.
What we have in the documentation is that we're using the federal GSA guidelines, except in looking at our numbers, the numbers we actually have don't match the federal GSA guidelines for Minnesota at all. And so I
For
brought
meal
it to.
reimbursement.
For meal reimbursement,
And
for
room
hotel
rates.
reimbursement. And so I brought it to the meet and confer to see, do we want to use the Minnesota standard level, or do we want to use the metro area level for meal reimbursement? As an example, right now in our policy, we reimburse up to $36 for supper, but the highest reimbursement, according to GSA for Minnesota, is I think $26 for supper.
28
Or is it 28?
Something.
It's $26 or $28. And so I was trying to find where they, I think I was just punching in different states that I thought might have higher ones. Washington DC is up there and Hawaii. But we don't typically send people there. We typically send people in Minneapolis.
So it'll mean a slightly higher reimbursement for breakfast, a slightly lower reimbursement for supper.
And lunch.
And lunch. So it just realigns, but it ties us into something that in the future you can look at.
Somebody asked you, you can refer to that.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what we had, but the numbers weren't reflected.
Right,
And then,
so-
and hotel reimbursement is actually going to match more of what the hotels are in the cities.
Okay. Anything else? Good job, Michael.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
No, I think it's good to have those scheduled.
So anything else, Ken?
Future
Okay.
agenda items. At the next board meeting, this kind of came in too late to put on this agenda, but we have had 3 different organizations volunteer to sponsor or to donate money, and they want to have a plaque sponsored by, and it does, for at least 2 of them, it does count as advertisement, and so therefore it would take board approval for that. We have $8,000 left to raise for our football scoreboard, and Rushford State Bank has pledged $8,000 as long as we have a sponsored by Rushford State Bank underneath the sign.
How big's plaque gotta be?
No. Yeah.
Just curious.
It's $8,000, it needs to be big.
2 by 2, 3 by 3?
How much is the total scoreboard?
$14,000.
So they're paying the majority of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
50%.
We've covered about 6. I have
Right,
raised separately,
okay.
so.
The other one is the Houston County American Dairy Association is giving us $3,000 for whatever we feel we need in our gym, and actually with the new bleachers, we do need a new scorer's table. But in order to get the $3,000, we have to put up signs that say "Drink Milk." That is advertisement, that needs board approval. And the Legion has also contacted Todd about donating a new trophy case. But they would want donated by the Legion. I don't know if that constitutes advertising or if that's just a regular donation, but to be on the safe side, I'm going to be asking for board approval because the Legion does have the Legion Club and it is a business. So I'm just letting you know that that's going to be,
So the purpose of the 3,000 would be just specifically for the table?
they're giving us
whatever.
3,000 for what we need,
What we
and
need.
that
Put that
we
up
need that.
on the wall, kind of like where they used to be, like you walk in the gym and on the right, they'd be up on the wall there. Would both the Legion and that one be there?
The trophy, the Legion one would be right by the trophy case.
Okay.
How long do the milks or drink milk signs stay up? We're not signing up
So
for
you have a
50
contract
years or
there for
something.
10 years or 5 years?
Usually for those donations, you just say, thank you, and it's for 10 years.
Right.
And with when we have to replace the scoreboard, and the scoreboard life is typically, what, 10?
Down markers don't last a year.
100 years old, I don't know how old it is. It's old.
Oh, the one we have out there is
40, I don't know.
Being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I get it.
But I'm just, it's an FYI, and I know that
Are you
will.
gonna send that on your, so the kind
Yep.
of rest of the people that are here?
Yep,
are hearing?
absolutely, and I just wanted to explain why something was coming in on new business for approval, because typically we like to have a week or 2 weeks to think about things before you're voting on it, so,
So these are going to come up for new business and approval in the same meeting?
yeah. Because Rushford State Bank needs to know whether or not you've approved it, and their meeting is March 21st, so that's why I needed to talk about the future agenda item, so you had heard about it first.
With the scoreboard, can we just make sure that they're I mean, just make sure there was no other donors of that
We've
approximate.
been asking for donors, we've been doing fundraising for this scoreboard for.
So there's not one that gave $5,000 that were,
The highest
Not-
one I've gotten was 1,000
okay.
with 2 different areas.
So, and we've been,
So maybe you just put your name on it, $8,000, put your name on it.
That's all right.
Any other questions on that? Okay, feedback, anything else on the, that's it? So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Joe. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Have a great evening, people.